Okay, team, welcome back to another episode of Rethink Real Estate. This one's a bit of a topical issue at the moment within the real estate community, and we wanted to talk about, and I wanted to absolutely bring Chris into this equation from a marketing perspective and from what we're seeing a lot of real estate agents do wrong out there. A lot of realtors are out there defending, the whole lawsuit that's happening and our commissions and our fees and everything along those lines. So Chris and I dive deeper into that today around, from an image perspective and from a brand perspective, what are you talking about? What are you doing? How are you depicting you and your brand within the midst of people questioning commission with this buyer side lawsuit and everything that's out there? Take a listen. Hopefully it helps. Hopefully it lets you censor a little bit. I know it's difficult in moments of passion. Certainly, pot calling kettle black here. But either way, I think that this could certainly help you think about this before you take action, because the internet is forever. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Well, folks, welcome back to another Rethink Real Estate episode. Today, I think this is I don't know, it's a little bit of a controversial episode, we're having a little bit of a go, Chris, at the real estate community with some things that they're saying out there, from a perspective of this whole lawsuit against the commission structure of things. So first of all, let's just give those that, might not be, that are listening, they're either out of the country or under a rock if you're a part of the real estate industry, that might not know what's happening at the moment. There's a whole lot of talk at the moment about commissional structure change. Now, there's a few different angles of all of this. Some media outlets focus on different things. So, for example, one of the first things that the media outlet focused on was the lawsuit where a whole bunch of sellers have gotten together and they've created a class action lawsuit, and these attorneys have basically gotten into this to sue some of the larger real estate companies and the National Association of Realtors. And essentially they're accusing people of colluding or some of the big companies of colluding together in order to keep the standardized buyer side commission high. Now, again, there's a great deal more detail about it, but essentially what's really turned this into a shitstorm, essentially, is that there was a very, very quick verdict that was ruled in favor of basically the attorneys, to not use all of the big fancy words, basically the people that are suing the realtors, to say, yeah, you're right, you guys have been paying too much real estate commission. Now, there was a settlement, there was a verdict and, damages of up to, I think it was like $3+ billion, Chris, or something along those lines. Anyway, long story short, it's never going to be that much. It'll be renegotiated. There'll be many, many appeals. It hasn't changed anything from a legislation perspective quite yet. There's been a few little trickle-down effects of some of the larger companies deciding to change their practices and do things a little bit differently. However, some of the MLSs in some of the states have changed some of their policies around offering buy-side commission. Where I'm going with all of this, all that said, it's creating a lot of hype in the real estate community. It's creating two different angles of public perception, not public perception, but public acknowledgement from realtors. There's probably three. One, they're shutting up and being quiet about it and not saying anything. But there's a great deal of people that, two, are taking the anger approach, like this is crap, like we should be shown more respect, like we do everything we possibly can to earn our commission, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then there's a third one, which is fearful of like, oh my God, what's happening? The real estate sky is falling. So what Chris and I wanted to talk about today, and what I wanted to get Chris's immediate thoughts on, is that, from a marketing perspective, Chris gets to see this from all angles. And I think that the first thing that there's something that just comes up with me automatically, Chris, in all of this, is that the saying, don't open your mouth and confirm that you're stupid, keep it shut. Or maybe that's a little too harsh, but man, there's been some shit that people have put out there on social media. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, we go through these cycles in real estate. I think it's every few years where there's just this one hot topic that just dominates the industry. It could be everything from the discount brokerages coming into the market to the cloud-based brokerages to now this, it feels like. And there's always a pushback, and it feels like the sounding board or the community board when it comes to this pushback happens to be on social media. And it's kind of hilarious in that standpoint, because when we are sitting in real estate, we see all this news, right?
Yep.
We see this news, we're privy to it, we get it in our email inboxes, we pay attention to real estate news outlets, and we're all seeing this. And
Yeah.
the difference is we're living and breathing in this industry, while people outside of this industry, people who might be your future clients, your future buyers, your future sellers, your sphere of influence, they're not privy to a lot of this information. They're reading headlines. And what happens when you get on the social media and you start blasting the idea about this, and start saying, hey, here's all the things I pay for. Or what we're specifically talking about was, there's this post that says, so you want to be a realtor, and it lists all of the things that a realtor pays for, and basically trying to justify the commission on the buyer side. So
Yeah.
in response to this lawsuit, all these agents have come out and they started posting on social media, basically saying, here's all the things that I pay for, half of which they might not even pay for. You know what I mean? Half of which might go to their broker might pay for, or they just might not utilize at all, whether it's professional photography or whatever. And so they list all these things on the thing, and they're basically sounding the alarm of the real estate industry and saying kind of this woe is me situation and all that stuff. That's not how you should market yourself. And I think that's what you're kind of getting at when it's like the shut up situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
because if you're going to market yourself, it's never going to be the fact of like, here's all the things that I do to justify my pay and my income. It's, here's the value of my work and here's the quality of my work, and that will always sing greater than here's all the things I pay for. Nobody wants to know how much the concrete costs. They want to see a flat foundation, and then the concrete worker is a great worker, right? Like, nobody cares that how much water did you put in it, how much concrete cost, like all those little things. They don't want to know that piece of it. They want to understand that you're actually providing value and you're justifying, you're earning your commission. And I would kind of go that route versus here's all the things I pay for on my day-to-day business, because every small business pays for everything.
Well, I think that the first thing that I want to point out in all of this, Chris, is that nobody's feeling sympathetic for the real estate community.
Not at all.
And that's one of the things that I think that people need to lead into and lean into. Like, I think it's okay having conversations with people in maybe a real estate agent forum. Okay,
Yes,
that it's just for real estate per people, some type of Discord where it's just for the real estate community, for other brokers, for other agents, for all of those people, for you to have your say, for you to have an opinion. But please, when it comes down to the general public and your general clients, nobody is feeling sympathetic for real estate agents. They are not going, oh my God, I hope that the realtor can pay more. And I think that, Chris, you said something at the beginning of this that's now just drawn me, and I'm going to steal it because it's so good, is that you said that, like, don't draw attention to the factor of what you're getting paid. I think that any comment when it comes to this individual situation is drawing comment for people to argue with you your paycheck. And it's one of those things. I think it's one of those things, Chris, and tell me your opinion of this. The moment that you have to defend it is the moment that you've lost.
100%. Yeah, 100%. The sad part about when it comes to pay is your voice on how much you get paid is never going to outweigh the voices of the selling sunsets and the $1 million listing and the stuff they see on TV. And I it sucks, but a lot of people watch those shows, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people watch
Yeah.
those shows and they see at the bottom right corner where it says, this is how much commission, Ryan Serhant made on this deal. And it's
Yeah.
like they pull all that statistics in there. Now, they're not breaking down all the fees and everything he's paid, and a lot of times it's just an estimate and everything like that, which is makes perfect sense. But you're never going to be able to combat that and take away the mindset that's been instilled in them for almost a decade now. Where I don't know how long that show's been around, but that show's been around for a decade now, and almost everybody's seen some type of real estate flipping show or anything like that where it shows how much profit is made. You're not going to be able to combat that, and it's
Yeah.
so why go up against that when instead you can spin the other way and say, here's the value I provide and here's why, I'm worth XYZ. Like, you should be going that route, because if you start talking about, no, here's all the things I have to pay for and all this stuff, nobody is sympathy in that situation.
So just to clarify, just to clarify what Chris and I are talking about is that, again, I think that you can say the value of what you provide as long as you've got a good argument for all of the things. There's many, many lists of every single thing. Like here's a good example of this. I come from a culture where buyer side is not something. There is no buyer representation when you buy a property. Now, when I buy real estate in Australia, is that I'm on my own. I have to figure it out on my own. I have to turn the utilities out on my own. I have to figure out title. I have to figure out, the escrow process on my own. I have to figure out the documents I need. I have to figure out the insurance I need. I have to figure out all of these individual things that, sure, I might be able to find them online, or maybe an agent might give me a checklist of things that you should think about and know and understand, but there's no real help. Now, that said, is that the average commission in Australia, I think it's hovering around 2% to sell your property, right? And that is purely just a listing side fee. Now, coming to North America and buying a few properties here is that realistically, I love having a buyer's agent. Like I genuinely enjoy it. Like I think that it's something that is absolutely needed. I think that it's something that to navigate the way through. I'll give you an example. Kalish and I bought a property in Manhattan, which is actually like buying a property on Mars. There's no real other place on earth like it. And I said this to the agent the other night. We went to dinner with the people who actually sold us the property. And I said to them, this conversation came up, and I'm like, from somebody that actually is in the industry, I have a relatively good understanding of real estate. When I say relatively, I have a 10 million times percentage more understanding of the real estate industry than what any general person does. And yet still, it was one of the most intimidating experience that I've ever been through, is purchasing a property within Manhattan. And I could not have done it without the buyer side and those people representing me to give me an understanding of it. So there is incredible, immense value in that side. You've got to lean into the value. Now, don't lean into, you have no idea how much it costs or how cyclical our business is, or how, you don't know how much we have to pay for insurances or our MLS fees. Don't get into that argument side of it. And that's what we're seeing so many people do, Chris.
Yeah, and I spent 18 months over in that Australia side, in that Australian market, and honestly, I was blown away by the idea that they didn't have a buyer side agent. And see the reasons why and everything like that. The seller doesn't want to pay both sides of the commission, XYZ. All that makes sense. But the fact that you don't have someone battling on your behalf and negotiating against an expert negotiator every single day, I think both of us are probably pro buyer side commission, or buyer side agent at least. And in Australia, there are some buyers who pay specifically to have an agent negotiate for them, or they have lawyers or something like that they have come in and they handle all the documentation. So,
well, I think that, like, to that point, Chris, I made this point the other day when we were talking about it to our group, is that is a service. Okay, I did 1,200 auctions the year I left Australia, right? Out of the 1,200 auctions that I did, standing at the front of a property and auctioning that property, I get to meet the individual buyers, okay, that are bidding on that property. Out of the 1,200 properties, I would say out of the 1,200, probably less than 1% actually had a buyer's agent representative that the buyer would pay a percentage of the sale price to go and negotiate on their behalf to represent them. Now, right, from knowing people that are in the auction community, it's in some southern marketplaces from where we are, like Sydney and Victoria or Melbourne, like it's like at least out of, say you've got 10 buyers that are bidding on an auction, at least 5 of them have a buyer's agent representative that they're paying out of their own pocket.
Yep.
And yes, it is the negotiation element to know what to do, when to do it, and all of those different things. But more so, it's the concierge service that they have that puts them all the way through the contract, all the way through the insurance, all the way through that service. And it's becoming more and more of a thing. So in a culture that's never had it versus a culture that, and now you're seeing it increase, there's definite merit in it. But the way that you ultimately approach that with your messaging is just the most important element.
And I think too, for the sky is falling type of real estate agents out there who are listening, we talked about, all of this money might be leaving the real estate industry if buyer side commission completely swallows up. We're seeing in Australia where there was little to no buyer side representation. And now when this generation comes in, it's not that they're lost, it's that they want to make sure that they're not getting screwed over. Like,
Mm.
and so this generation, like me, you, we're all doing our research online to make sure what we're buying is a good deal, and we're trying to make sure we have the right situation. Now, when they go into a negotiation, they don't want to be feeling like they're at a used car dealership. They don't want to feel
Yeah.
like they're getting taken advantage of. So I think there's always going to be a buyer side of this element in North American real estate. I at least hope. Even if there's an initial snap reaction where there's zero buyer agents and you have to represent yourself for maybe a 5 to 10 year window, I think after that it's going to snap back in that sense, and the buyers will probably have to pay the commission on their side. But that's going to be very interesting on how that comes out with loans and all that stuff. Like it's going to have to be taken care of one way or another in the purchase price, because I don't think buyers are going to be able to turn around and pay that directly out of their pocket. But yeah, again, I think back to the end of the day, I don't think this is going to go away from a buyer side. And I don't think we should be bringing negative attention to this, because I think what you're doing at that point is you're trying to encourage your audience to then go do more research, and they're just going to do the bare minimum research where they just headline shop. And depending on what news outlet they go to, they're going to then get their own perception of your business and how you're running your stuff. When again, I think they just wouldn't even be paying attention to this otherwise. I think it's just there's so much news in this world right now that I think this is the last thing they care about unless they're actively in the market right now.
And I think that that's the other statement that I think we round out and we end on, is that, guys, don't get defensive when you're asked questions about this. Now that it is so open, now when it be questions, I like, again, what I'm thinking about specifically when I'm talking to you, Chris, I'm thinking about the external presence of marketing. I'm thinking about the external image. I'm thinking about brand awareness. I'm thinking about your perception of your brand. And I just like, one of the most amusing things for me to do is to go and read comments in a contentious topic.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. Like, and because this is the problem in these forums, guys, is that let's say you put an opinion up about this, or you put an opinion defending, or you put an opinion even about, hey, this is why we're worth all of this money. Any opinion that you put up, you've got to remember the people that are going to respond to that comment, okay, are probably the people that are less likely to be supportive because they're keyboard warriors, right? Yeah. They're the people that are not going to pick up the phone and have a conversation with you because they would never do that. They would obviously then just sit behind the keyboard and absolutely just try and, provoke a reaction or whatever it may be. Please don't get sucked down to that slippery slope. It's better to say nothing at all, okay, than to have an argument in public that then is there in public record and ultimately can really do some harm to the community that ultimately you're serving, because so many people are, if it's not an agent forum, the other thing also is that even within that agent forum, people are just trying to bait you into actually having an argument with them as well.
Even if it's people you don't know, if you post on Facebook and it's public and you get, a comment from some random person, you start getting in a just giant argument where it's a reply battle, like it's not serving you any benefit. So I would say the internet is forever. Please try and remember that. And one of the things that I think is a good rebuttal to this whole thing too, is if you guys scroll back to one of the episodes that Ben did in the past of Rethink Real Estate with Russell Lagan, and you guys talked about buyer side commission, I thought he had a really good answer on when you were a seller, or when you were a buyer and now you're a seller, who paid your buyer side commission. And then it kind of changes the narrative on that standpoint. I get it. It might be 20, 30, 45 years ago. But they got into their home and they didn't pay their buyer, or they didn't pay their buyer side commission when they were a buyer. So take a look at that. Maybe take a look at some articles on
that's a really strong point. I'd actually forgotten that Russ brought that up, is that that's a really good point, is that, hey, have you ever bought real estate before? Yes. Who paid for you to have representation?
Yeah.
The seller. So, hey, I think that we need to,
America doesn't like to think about now I have to help my neighbor situation, but that is kind of what it is, right? It's the helping the younger generation be able to purchase a home and everything like that. I thought his answer was super economical and thought provoking. So even if all it does is give you a little bit more ammo to have a deeper conversation with that person who is combative, have that conversation in private. Say, hey, have you ever purchased real estate? Yes, I have. Okay. Who represented or who paid the commission on your side, and then kind of run down that situation.
Well, Chris, always insightful. Thank you, sir. And looking forward to having you back on Rethink Real Estate shortly.
Yeah, see you guys.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.